An ending is something very important in storytelling. It is, by definition, the last thing the plot has to give us and can either make or break everything leading up to that point. A lot of people think the ending is not important, that the story is more defined by the journey presented. But that is not true. You look at stories such as the Mass Effect trilogy, School Days, or The Sixth Sense, and tell me that endings don't matter. These examples are defined by their ending, sometimes being the only reason anyone brings up said examples. And that brings me to today's arc analysis, which will be focusing on the final episodes of Haganai, I Want to Make Friends, otherwise known as Baka wa Tomodachi. This video will contain complete spoilers for the entire series, so if you want to experience the plot for yourself, I would advise you to stop watching this video and come back once you have finished the series. You have been warned. Haganai is the anime adaptation of a light novel series written by Yomi Hirasaka, which is getting ready for its 9th volume. The anime currently has 2 seasons, each holding 12 episodes, and has received quite the following over the short time it has been around. The series follows our protagonist, Kodaka Hasegawa, a transfer student who is thought by everyone to be a thug, and is feared by almost the entire school, leaving him with 0 friends. Kodaka does not like his current situation, and upon meeting the snarky loner Yozura Mikazuki, he helps form the Neighbors Club, whose main goal is to help people who have no friends make friends. He meets a wonderful cast of characters that are all pretty girls that can't help but desire him. Hold it right there. Now, I know what you're all saying right now. Dude, this is totally a traditional harem anime. It's just one dude going around getting a bunch of high school girls. But I assure you, that's not the case. I won't deny this anime has some qualities of a traditional harem, such as beach episodes and some questionable situations, but these are not the primary focus of the story. Like a good slice-of-life anime, the primary focus of the story doesn't boil down to something as simple as, which girl do I choose? The plot instead looks at the whole picture. The story manages to not only break down all of Kodaka's situations, but also portrays him as more of a caring friend rather than a perv that can't make up his mind on what girl he wants to keep. What I mean is this. Kodaka never intends to fall in love. He's not some idiot that only thinks about girls and video games, because he shows little to no interest in both subjects. Kodaka is very smart, talented at cooking, and embodies both loyalty and responsibility. That's very far from the typical protagonist these shows like to create, and actually provides an interesting setup for events to come. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what this has to do with the ending, and my answer is, well, a lot. When analyzing certain plot points, in this case the ending, it is important to dissect 2 subjects, the protagonist and the conflict, or in simple terms, the main character and the problem. Since we just looked at the main character, it is now time to look at the problem, which comes down to 2 girls, Yozura and Senakashiwa. I know there are other characters in the story, but these 2 not only prove to be the most prominent, but also symbolize the key themes of the story. Yozura symbolizes Kodaka's past. Back when Kodaka was a kid, he had one close friend named Sora, who was revealed to be Yozura at the end of Season 1. The memories the 2 have with each other is something Yozura holds very close to her. Kodaka also holds these memories close to him, but he desires to move away from his past as well. Yozura wants Kodaka to cherish in his past they shared together and use it to continue their friendship they lost when they were young. She basically wants it to be exactly how it was when they were kids. Senna, on the other hand, is the exact opposite and symbolizes Kodaka's future. She is not one to hold on to past events and instead has the mentality that tomorrow is always better. She believes that looking forward in life will lead to happiness and that the past is behind her. Kodaka deeply desires to change himself, as he wishes for a day where he is accepted for who he will become instead of what he is now. The interesting part about this breakdown does not come from the 2 symbols individually, but rather when they are together. When Senna and Yozura are together, they instead symbolize the present. Together they are the problem, literally and metaphorically. Let me give you an example. In episode 6 of season 1, the Neighbors Club take a trip to a local karaoke joint. Senna and Yozura are both arguing, as usual, and then realize that it is cheaper for all of them to get their own rooms. Yozura and Senna both choose to get their own room, but when Kodaka is presented with the offer, he instead chooses to pay for everyone else and share the room, leaving Yozura and Senna alone. This short and meaningless instant breaks down the plot perfectly. Both Yozura and Senna are heavily interested in Kodaka, both in terms of affection and ideology. If we look at it from this standpoint, both Senna and Yozura admire Kodaka's preference of the present, and desperately want to claim it for themselves. However, one cannot be in both the past and the future, which is why in the end of the day, he must choose one. Do you now see the beauty of this plot? Throughout the entire series, both Senna and Yozora are playing a game of tug-of-war to claim Kotaka, and each seem to try to get the upper hand on one another. To someone not reading into it, the easy way of explaining their actions is because they both have a crush on him. But look deeper, and you have this beauty of a conflict. What's even better is that during Season 2, Kotaka becomes aware of his situation, and tries to avoid the choice as much as possible. He doesn't want to lose one side, as he would rather keep both together, but this is impossible. You can't have two girls, and you can't have both the past and the future. It's okay to admire the past or look forward to the future, but you must pick one. Are you someone who lives for nostalgia, or are you someone who looks towards goals not yet achieved? Kotaka does not want to make this choice, and wants to instead focus on the present, which is what both girls desire as well. They want to claim the present, as each both struggle to do so, and Kotaka is their ticket. I know this all sounds confusing, and it may just be me, but I feel this is the underlying theme of the plot. It took me 2 full viewings, but if you dig a little, the signs all point to this. Now that we understand that, we can talk about the ending. Throughout the series, Senna and Yozora grow closer to Kotaka. In the first season, the split is even, with both Senna and Yozora having key moments in this series that bring them closer to Kotaka. This all changes in the final episode of Season 1, however. In this episode, Kotaka confronts Yozora about their past, and questions her on what he should call her, Sora or Yozora. Of course, in symbolic terms, he is asking her if he should embrace the past or continue forward. She then tells him to call her Yozora, which on paper sounds good, but seals her fate. By doing this, Yozora closes all ties to the past that Kotaka was struggling with. She basically tells him to live now and look forward, which of course is Senna in a nutshell. During Season 2, Senna and Kotaka get closer than ever, but Yozora is quickly losing her place in Kotaka's heart. In the instances Kotaka would have agreed with Yozora, he now finds himself disagreeing with her because he is no longer tied to the past. Senna keeps pulling Kotaka in by talking to him about past events that don't matter now. It's even said that they were arranged to get married when they were 4 years old. But Senna tells Kotaka that since it was in the past, it doesn't change anything. There are even times where Senna calls out Yozora for dwindling too much on the past, which creates conflict in the club. Yozora is not only losing Kotaka, but also her control over the club. The past is proving to mean nothing. The tension comes to a boiling point in episode 11 of Season 2, where in the final moments of the episode, this happens.
さっきパパと電話した時に話題になったんだけど。あんたやっぱり私と結婚しなさいよ。こないだからずっと考えてたんだけど、前にも言ったじゃない？パパとあんたのお父さんとの約束なんてどうでもいいのよ。でもこのどうでもいいってのは約束それ自体のことで、なんか婚約が発覚した時は結婚そのものがなしみたいになっちゃったけど、それとは関係なしに今の私の気持ち的にはあんたと結婚したいと思うのよ。だって私、小高のことが好きだから。
なんだって？
もうミスしちゃったじゃないバカ。
すまん。で、なんだって？
なんだってじゃない。そっか。言っちゃった。まあいいか。どうせそのうち言うつもりだったし。つまりなんかそういうことだから。
What? Yeah, that just happened. She flat out proposes to him in front of everyone. She is ready to move forward and wants him to be a part of it. She wants to live in the present and take him with her to the future. So what does our hero do? He runs out of the room like a big wimp, of course! And this is where my problems with the ending start. I mean, here you have a breaking point. Yozora is no longer relevant to either the theme or the plot, and the only one left is going all in. And instead of being a man and taking responsibility, he just runs out the door. I mean, I get what the scene is trying to do. It's showing that Kotaka is scared to move forward, fearing that he may lose everything. But that doesn't mean it doesn't annoy me. Maybe it's a personal boundary of being someone who never backs down from problems and instead takes them head on. But it just seems out of character for someone who is admired for his loyalty and sense of responsibility to just run out the door, avoiding the problem entirely. Granted, you could argue he was doing this from the start, but this is different. Before he thought of clever ways to avoid the situation, but running out the door just makes him look pathetic. Don't worry though, as there is much more to this ending than just this scene. Beginning with episode 12, it follows Kotaka sometime after this event, where he has started to help the student council out with grunt work. Why? Why do we need this? I don't say this because it's random. The anime does go out of its way to explain that one of the student council members tried to bring down the neighbors club and now they're behind on work, which is why Kotaka felt obligated to help in the first place. I mean, this does give us a chance to see Kotaka react in a different environment, and the writing does a solid job of showing us that he does regret the decisions he made last episode. But why revisit these characters that we've only seen once before? The show introduces 3 new faces in the second season, with only one maybe being necessary. But they all have a thing for Kotaka. We don't need more girls, especially when he shows no interest in any of them. Anyways, a week passes by and Kotaka still hasn't gone back to the neighbors club. He is then confronted by the gender-confused girl, and yes, I am just as confused as you are, who basically says, "You should come back, bro," to where Kotaka is like, "I can't and you shouldn't want me to." Then she's like, "I know you're a wimp, but I still respect you because I'm your friend. And by the way, I kinda wanna rape." And then before anything got too awkward, the sex addict of the club, Rika, calls him and tells him to meet her on the roof. He does so, and they actually have a really epic fight scene. Now, I haven't said anything about Rika, and that's because of this moment. In Season 1, she doesn't matter at all, but in Season 2, she starts to question Kotaka, and becomes the only member aware of how the whole ordeal has affected him. She knows he has avoided making the choice between Yozora and Senna, and has hinted to him before that she was aware. This time, though, she's coming all out, with the intent of ending his suffering once and for all. It's safe to say that Rika has had the most changes out of all the side characters in the series, easily making her one of the most memorable and likable. But let's get back to the previous scene. During their fight, she tells him how it isn't fair that he is playing mind games with everyone and that he acts like doing so isn't a big deal. She asks him if he really doesn't realize what he's doing. Kotaka then admits to his actions, saying that he did it all to preserve the club. He calls it his heaven in a hellish world, and says that he must continue to do so in order to keep it the same. Rika objects to this, saying that it's not true because doing so doesn't make him happy. She says that all he is doing is pushing himself away from everyone, and that he tries too hard for such a stupid reason. Kotaka snaps at this moment, telling Rika that she is no better and that he doesn't understand why she pushes herself to the point of getting sick all for the club. She simply says because she desires to make friends. It is at this moment that the fight stops and the two fall over in exhaustion. Now, I know I said I didn't like where the ending was going, but all that is taken back now. This one scene redeemed that. This was so well executed and did such a good job dealing with the conflict presented of the 23 episodes before this. After they catch their breath, Rika tells him that no matter what he chooses, she will still be there, and if he ever has a problem, he should come to her. Kotaka then asks Rika to be his friend. Rika tells him she doesn't need to accept it because they were friends all along, and that true friends will continue to be friends even if something happens that they don't like. Kotaka smiles, finally realizing what he must do. He leaves the roof and proceeds to the clubroom to confront Senna. Now, instead of telling you what happens, I'm just going to show you, because it is important that you see for yourself why this ending doesn't work. Let's have a look.
Senna. Senna. 俺は
You get me.
え
You get me.
はあ。
旅に出ます。探さないでください。
どうやら俺たちの残念な青春はまだまだ終わらないらしい。
You know, despite seeing this ending 3 times already, it still manages to piss me off. I mean, come on, why? Why end there? We were so close to hearing his decision, and you decide that's the proper time to throw a rush and contrived plot twist? What's even worse is this plot twist comes from Yozora. Again, why? Why are we trying to make Yozora important again? She has been irrelevant since Season 2 started, so why should we care now? Here's another good question. Why would Kotaka care? I mean, I know that's his friend, but can't he just say, before we look at that text, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about. What's funny about this, though, is that this isn't the same ending that the light novel had, which has the story end with him approaching the door leading to the clubroom, which is still a bad ending. Not as bad, but still pretty bad. If you weren't sure what to do with the ending, why not end it with Kotaka smiling after Rika tells him that she will be his friend no matter what? That is a good place to end. It's a happy note, and it still leaves us excited to see where the series goes next. But do not try to use a contrived cliffhanger as a way to say, thanks for watching guys, see ya season 3. There are so many other ways they could have ended this. What about an after credits scene where it shows Yozora walking with a hoodie on as she starts texting, "I'm leaving, don't come looking for me"? Here's another good one. Why not have it so Yozora comes in the room right after Kotaka confesses, but the only thing we see is Senna crying and Kotaka holding her hand. Out of shock, Yozora turns around saying, "I'm leaving, don't come looking for me," slams the door and walks out. It would still leave the vagueness the author wanted, but also help set it up for the next part. This is obviously too much work, however, as they would rather just take the easy way out rather than work towards a greater story. What's sad is that this isn't the only anime that does stuff like this. Full Metal Panic's second season did something similar, and you know what the worst part about that was? It never got a third season. What if this doesn't get a third season? Then what? Also, don't give me that crap about, well, it's up to the viewer to assume what happens next. That would only apply if it ended with him smiling after Rika's fight, not while he is in mid-confession. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that open-ended endings are bad. I mean, I think God of War has the absolute most perfect ending, and it completely leaves itself open for a sequel. He kills Ares, then becomes the God of War, with the end credits rolling after he takes a seat on his new throne. That is an open-ended ending. I mean, the ending Haganai chose is the worst type of open-ended endings, and would make even the most hated of endings even more terrible. Let's try doing this with Mass Effect 3. So while the little boy is talking to you at the end, instead of being able to make the final choice, the game ends right after he asks, "What will you do, Shepard?" There would be more outrage than there is currently. It's better to have a terrible ending than T-set ending. I bet you the creators are like, "Oh, you want to find out what happens next? Okay, just go ahead and check out our next season." It's a terrible way to take advantage of the audience. Something similar happened with Azura's Wrath, where the real ending was locked behind a buyable DLC level. No one should be getting away with this. Maybe I was just too devoted into the story. I'm not gonna lie, Senna has quickly become my favorite female character in anime. I'm not just saying that because of her obvious assets. She has no doubt been the most affected by the club, changing from a cocky know-it-all to a caring person that pushes everyone forward in a positive manner, unlike Yozora, who is still a backstabbing loner. I'm not trying to sell my OTP here, but when the author only gives Yozora one date between her and Kotaka compared to Senna's 7, it's hard to really see her as a love interest anymore. The author obviously was pushing for Senna. It's not just dates though. Senna has more touching moments with Kotaka, and when people assume Kotaka has a girlfriend, they are usually referring to Senna. It happens too much for it just to be blind fan service. I am aware that some people may think Yozora is an underdog, but she isn't, and here is why. Picture you are Kotaka and you have two girls. The girls both like you, but you are unaware of said affection beyond friends. Blondie offers to go out with you, invites you to her house to meet her dad, does sweet things for you, and generally enjoys your company. Then you have Shorthair here, who constantly uses everyone like a pawn to get what she wants, hardly ever hangs out with you unless it's required, and the only thing you have in common is that you were once friends when you were 10 years old. Given the two, who would you pick? You would pick Blondie. Don't try to justify it, you would go for Blondie. Yozora is not an underdog, she's a spectator. She watches her love get taken away from her and does nothing about it until it's too late. If you want a good underdog story, look at Hinata. That girl is an underdog. Sure, she may be shy and fail most of the time, but she tries. If someone knows you are trying for their sake, they will grow to like you. At least in the anime world, that is. Can't always say the same thing for real life. What's even worse is this terrible cliffhanger has already set up the ending for the next season. Kotaka is going to find Yozora, and she is going to confess her love for him, and of course, give him the ultimate decision, her or Senna. The problem is that this goes against everything the plot has built up to. The plot is moving to a direction where it doesn't matter what Kotaka's choice is, because his friends will stay with him, but that's not going to happen. Heaven forbid we have a realistic turn of events where Kotaka tells Yozora to grow up and get over it. You know what would have made Season 3 more exciting? If he told Senna his answer. They could leave everything else the same, even though it would still have some of the same problems. I'm not just saying that because I want to know, but because Season 3 would have been more interesting with this added element. If he said yes, Season 3 would focus on this. They would still look for Yozora, but we would begin to see the club somewhat split, with feelings mixed towards Kotaka's choices. Kotaka would also wonder if being selfish was the right decision. If he said no, then we could have focused on either his regret or his struggles to search for Yozora while trying to keep Senna and the others close to him. Regardless of his choice, it would have made for a far more interesting plot, and would have also made sense for both story progression and character development to put this new obstacle in front of our protagonist, who we desperately want to see happy in the end. I'll end this with a final note. I understand cliffhangers are the easiest way to keep your series relevant, and done right, can be a powerful plot device to get people excited for the next part. This mid-resolution cliffhanger is not one of them. It is lazy, cheap, and only annoys your fans to no end. This is a real disappointment, because I actually like this anime. I think it's very entertaining, both from an analytical and entertainment standpoint. The pacing is great, the comedy is funny, the writing is very well done for the genre, and the characters are wonderful. I'm not saying that this anime is going to be topping Welcome to the NHK anytime soon, but I would totally recommend this to people, but I can't. I know I sound like a whiny fanboy, but anything good the show had going for it is ruined by this terrible ending. It doesn't matter how much I like Senna, Kotaka, and Rika. It doesn't matter how good the symbolism is. It doesn't even matter if I like the animation or music. The ending just kills it all. It's like you just had the best piece of sushi in your life, only to find out that the last bite had an entire spoonful of wasabi in it. You loved it, and you will probably come back to it, but you're still left with that bad taste in your mouth, which in the end only leads to disappointment. And that is the end of this arc analysis. I hope you enjoyed this first episode. Join me next time where we will look at two characters that could have been so much more if only given the time during the story. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.